Hi, it's Alexis Hasselberger, time management and productivity coach. Holiday season is upon us, and it's back in person for the most part. Your companies are having holiday parties in person. You're probably going to be meeting up with your friends and family for a New Year's party. We are kind of back in business. And this holidays season, it's always been kind of a stressful time, right? There's a lot of hosting happening. You're going to be a guest at certain places, and there's just a lot of stress that kind of comes along with this. So, I wanted to share some tips about how we can de stress this holiday season. No matter what's going on, no matter what holidays you celebrate, if you are not celebrating holidays, in this upcoming time around New Year's, et cetera, then just think about this for whenever you're celebrating a lot of holidays, right? It can be stressful. And so let's talk about how we can avoid some of that stress. So, one of the things we can do is to recognize that the pandemic is not, in fact, over, right? We are still living in it. So, even though most of us are meeting people in person, it doesn't mean that the risk is over, right? And I count myself in this. Like, I am having a family gathering with my family. There will be more people there than there usually are, but we are going to try to be safe. And so there's some simple things that you can do to be safe as well. So I know that masks are not required on airplanes anymore, but do you really want to be the person that accidentally brings COVID to the party? No, right? Just wear that mask. Test before you go, right? Just make sure you're not bringing anything with you, especially when there might be elderly people or babies around. And then if you are feeling sick, now is the time to actually bow out. Well, maybe not now, but the day before or whatever it is that you're going to, you're going to want to bow out because you don't want to get other people sick. As sad as that might be, but at least we all know how to use Zoom now, right? So maybe they can Zoom you in. So another thing that you can do is if you're hosting, right? If you're hosting a big gathering, if you're hosting a big dinner, make a game plan in advance, right? So figure out what it is that you're going to be cooking, if anything, or maybe you're ordering stuff, that's fine too. Just figure out what is the plan, and then work backwards with a timeline so that you know when things need to go in the oven or when things need to be picked up, and that you're not scrambling at the last minute, just trying to make sure that not only are your guests happy, but also that you have everything you need. So another thing we can do is to embrace delivery. I think this has been something over the past couple of years. I myself, I rarely, if ever, used any kind of delivery grocery service pre-pandemic. I'm too cheap. I just don't want to pay that extra charge. But what happened is that I started using these services, and now I cannot go back. So I have not been setting foot in a Costco for maybe 2.5 years at this point, but that doesn't mean that I don't have, that Costco-sized thing of toilet paper downstairs. We can use delivery services to help ease the stress for ourselves. We are essentially buying back our own time by using a delivery service. Now, of course, make sure if you are going to use a delivery service, tip well, right? These people, they deserve our compensation for their hard-earned labor. So make sure that if you are using a delivery service, you're tipping well, because there are people behind that service as well. Now, another thing you can think about is just what else can you do in advance? So you've made the game plan, and hopefully that has things in a timeline in advance. But what can you do? If you're making a big meal, the weekend before, chop all the vegetables and put them in the refrigerator. Or if you're making desserts, can any pies or cookie doughs be made in advance and put in the freezer? If you're having people over, if you're having guests over, can you set up the beds, a week in advance? Just don't leave it to the last minute. If you're traveling, pack in advance. So there's a lot of things we can do to just make it so that that last minute scramble is not as bad and that we feel less stressed. Now, if you are going to be a guest somewhere, and if you are going with other people, so maybe a spouse or a plus one or your kids or whatever it is, it can be good to define a safe word or a script that you'll use when you're needing to get out of there, right? So if you need to leave early for some reason, maybe you're just not enjoying yourself anymore as much as you really love your family, you're just done with people, come up with some sort of word that everyone in your family or whoever you're with there knows, that's our signal, let's get out of here. And then you can have a little script, whatever it is, especially if you think you might be leaving more than is kind of reasonable or customarily early, if it's, the party's lasting until midnight, but you're out of there at 9 p.m., you might want to come up with just a little script in advance so that you know what you'll say and it'll be less stressful. So maybe it's just, hey, thank you so much. I really enjoyed it, but I'm really exhausted and I need to get home. Or maybe it's, our dog is waiting at home and I know the house is going to be a disaster if we don't get there sooner. Whatever it is, make it true. or believable, but have something that you prepared in advance so that if you need to duck out early, you can, and it won't be a big deal. And then lastly, make a list of the things that you are grateful for in advance of any family gathering. They say that absence makes the heart grow fonder. Most cheesy or cliche sayings are true, right? And it's true. Like we have been missing these family gatherings, this ability to, be with a lot of people. And when it happens, we might also be feeling kind of annoyed because you know what? The people that we grew up with, our families, they can trigger us in ways that no one else can, right? So in advance, think about the things that you are grateful for and then have that little list ready. You can whip it out anytime. Maybe you're listening to one of your elderly relatives drone on about, something that is just driving you insane. Whip out that little list, remind yourself why you're grateful for your family, for your health, for whatever it is, so that you can de-stress a little in that moment. So I hope these tips are helpful. If you have your own tips for de-stressing the holidays, would you be so kind as to pop them down below in the comments? I would love to hear them so that I can gather even more of these tips. If you like this kind of content and you want more of it, make sure to subscribe. I'll see you next week.
Yes, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Yeah, as you can see, only 17.3% of people are subscribed, so please subscribe.